There's an Ojibwe proverb that greeted me each morning when I came downstairs. It was written in calligraphy on this beautiful scroll that a Buddhist roommate of mine had made, and it was just suspended on the descending ceiling. So I would see it every morning as I walked past. And it had this Ojibwe saying on it: "Sometimes I go about pitying myself, and all the while I am carried across the sky by beautiful clouds." This was a daily invitation to me, seeing this watercolor with these words, a daily invitation to the spiritual path. An invitation to listen for the larger life of the world as it exists, rather than the drunken monkey in my own mind. It reminds us that the spiritual path is this moment-to-moment invitation to practice living mindfully. Rabbi Kushner described this path as the setting out, the leaving of everything behind, leaving the social milieu, the preconceptions, this narrowed field of vision, the expectations. It means no longer expecting relationships, memories, words to mean what they used to mean, to be, in a word, open. Being open is one of my core values. I was in a workshop once about core values where the speaker gave us a worksheet of 20 different values, and we were asked over time to whittle it down to 10, and then to 6, and down to 2. There was a lot of groaning in the audience as we were forced to do this, or asked. And he assured us, so there are no right or wrong answers here. We're each unique. And then he said, but I will invite you to stand, if you're able, as I say some of the values out loud so that we can see among us, what our core values are. And the first one he said was love. And about 90% of the people stood up. And when he added family, we were up to 95% of the people. I wasn't one of those people. I was still sitting in my chair. I had written in one of my core values, so I didn't really expect that other people would have it, but I wrote in being open / growth. For me, this is at the core of my faith and my purpose in life. For me, growth and being open are larger than love or family. Being open is a way of being that makes room for love and family to exist. Because when we're open, it means that we are accepting life on life's terms, that we're striving to accept people as they are, which is the foundation of love. Being open means that we let go of our expectations enough. Sometimes not fully and sweet, I'm just totally open, but sometimes we just pry our fingers off of those grasping expectations just enough that we can notice what's actually before us, around us, what might authentically even be in us, without forcing whatever is to fit into the confines of our comfort, our expectations, our understandings, or our illusions of control. That's not easy to do. It's a spiritual practice to be with that uncertainty. And I was trying to figure that out after college. I was studying Buddhism, I was reading Sufi poets, and I found that everywhere I turned, there were all these admonishments just to practice being open. And a place where I really learned more about what that means was through my studies of Buddhism and the Four Noble Truths, which you may be familiar with. They were articulated by the Buddha as his first teaching after his enlightenment. Enlightenment meaning when he had insight into the causes and the remedy of suffering. He said in the first truth that everything is impermanent and life is suffering. You may not want to listen anymore after you hear that noble truth, but Sylvia Bornstein, who is a contemporary Buddhist teacher, translates that and puts it this way. She says, life is challenging for everyone. Our physical bodies, our relationships, all of our life circumstances are fragile and subject to change. We are always accommodating. And the Buddha saw that we suffer because we resist this fundamental nature of reality, which is that things change. And that when we resist that, that's when we suffer. And he said there is a way out of suffering, which is non-attachment, non-struggling. And that the way to live on that path is through the Eightfold Path. Living with right understanding, right or wise understanding, wise thought, wise speech, wise conduct, right or wise means of making a living, right attitude or effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. And for me, that's a lot to take in all at once, but this scroll on the staircase reminded me each day as I passed it what right mindfulness can mean. Sometimes I go about pitying myself, and meanwhile I am carried across the sky by beautiful clouds. In Sufi practice, many people talk about zikr, which is living in a state of the constant remembrance of God. And for me, or God, I might define as just the unfolding of life. How do we, throughout the day, how do I continue to remember something exists beyond the really important and emotionally intense reactions that I feel living in my own human skin? That this is not the whole story or totality of life. Fortunately for me, I stumbled into a spiritual practice that, without even realizing that it could be one, and it helped me practice mindfulness, to get beyond that monkey mind and to remembering the larger sky, the larger life. It was a moving meditation practice through dance. The teacher would invite us to make contact with the ground, to feel our feet. You may have done this in a walking meditation if you've ever been to a Buddhist sitting, or Tai Chi, as some people here practice and teach. But this opportunity to feel your foot, to actually notice as it lifts, as it moves, as the weight shifts from one leg into the other, and to allow your attention to be there. And when you notice yourself chattering about how long have we been doing this now? Or what am I supposed to be? You can just bring your attention back to experiencing the sensations of your connection with the floor. Other times she would invite us to connect our awareness with the breath, to just release your breath, to relax your jaw as you moved. I don't know how many of you, just the minute you start dancing, you're like, oh, I feel totally self-assured, and I'm just going to relax my jaw and my breath, and I'm just totally present in my... No, right? Like it's often... And so they had to constantly remind us, like, release your breath, release your jaw, let your neck go, let your head go. See what happens to your worrying what somebody thinks of you when you bring your attention back to the sensations of this moment. We were invited to drop down from that rattling, drunken monkey in the cage, that thinking mind, back into the sensations of the body, and to let our dance follow that lead, wherever the breath might move us, or the feet, and to just let it guide the dance. And this practice is called 5 Rhythms. It was started by Gabrielle Roth, and she shared this. She said the whole idea of meditation is to still the mind. And for me, the fastest way to still the mind is to move the body. And I found it works beautifully. I came to spiritual practice with a need to go below the mind. And when I say below the mind, I mean the thinking mind. I didn't need any more ideas. Yeah, I understand that. She offered a warm-up that you can find online that's called Body Parts, where she would invite us to move through our different body parts, to let your knees be the starting point of your dance, your hips, your spine, release your spine. She would say, imagine there's a blank canvas surrounding you and that paint is flowing out of your elbows. What does your painting look like today? It might be angry. It might be tired or bored. It might be many things, but to just notice where you're at. Return again and again to these points of focus so that we practice letting our thoughts go, letting our emotions go, and instead to just be present, to be open, to be non-attached, to just see what is there. And when we do that, we don't get to pick and choose what shows up. So we're not always going to notice, I'm pitying myself, but there's a greater sky. You may only notice that you're pitying yourself. You may only notice that your back hurts. You may only notice that you have an uncomfortable emotion that's coming up that you would rather not express. And that's often what happens when we stop filtering reality to just accept everything that comes in. Those things that are uncomfortable that we may push aside, the ways that we resist and refuse the nature of reality, when we let them come in, they just come in. The anger that we've stuffed, the grief that we've been holding at bay, just the angst and uncertainty of being a human. That whatever unwanted suffering we've sent out to the borderlands will waltz its way back in when we're practicing being open. I appreciated that in this practice, the invitation was to move with that. If you really couldn't get out of your head that you're bored, that this song is ridiculous right now and is making me look stupid. I don't even want to dance to a song like this. She said, dance your boredom and your judgment. Like, personify it and amp it up. Because you're gonna get bored of even that. And that it will change. So just move with it. Dance with your ego, who's saying, look at my sweet moves. Dance with your grief, even if it isn't fitting the rhythm that everyone else is dancing to. Follow your authentic expression. We were invited to dance and pay attention for over an hour and a half. And so in that amount of time, you can't just like dance to and no one talks on the dance floor. So there's not really an easy escape. You have to practice something. You're going to practice fear, you're going to practice worry, you're going to practice pushing away, you're going to practice letting in, you're going to whatever. But it's just going to keep coming at you as long as you stay there on the floor. And I found that over time, as I became more comfortable just allowing things to come up, that they actually moved. That whatever thing that I had been pushing away, when I finally just let it be and was curious and could personify it and let it express itself, eventually I did get bored of it. After a while, you just can't say to yourself for an hour and a half, they're all watching me. Do they think this is weird? I mean, like, you can only say that to yourself so many times before you're just like, who cares, right? And as the First Noble Truth says, everything is impermanent, including our thoughts and feelings, even the discomfortable ones, the uncomfortable ones. That things will change. So if we don't stuff our humanity, the real, whole, wide expanse of what we experience as humans, if we let that just surface, it will eventually do its thing and move. It's only when we resist and try to stuff and keep it at bay that we suffer. And so the various clouds I found, they got less enticing. Some of the thoughts, the things that I might usually sit with for a while after so long, you just get bored. And I found myself being willing to let those different thoughts come, just let them go more easily. And which led to joy and just laughter, like, are you serious? I'm thinking that again? And over time, just that laughter led me to a sense of a desire to just connect with the other people on the floor. Like, what are you doing? Because I'm just bored with that story. Let's just engage and be alive together. One of the teachers, Vin Marty, his body of work is called Soul Motion. He would always invite us to take a partner. He would say, you start off with dance intimate, which is where you get connected to your own authentic movement and you're present with yourself. And then you take a partner to dance with other, to try to maintain your own authentic dance and movement in the presence of another. And he would say, now you don't have to mirror the other person. You don't have to look like you're doing the same moves. You don't have to make eye contact. You don't have to smile. You just are invited to maintain your authenticity in the presence of another. And he repeated that many times because it is a powerful impulse to try to fit in with one another. And I watch The Drunken Monkey in my mind, and this happens. I have to practice this all the time, on and off the dance floor. The drunken monkey in my mind that says, is this good enough? Am I doing this right? Are you enjoying this? Are you happy? As if I can read someone's mind and know what they need and determine how to do something. And it just made me nutty trying to do that. It's a merry-go-round of anxiety seeking outside approval. And they say in Al-Anon, if I'm in your head, I'm out of my mind. And that's truly what it is. And so partnering with another showed me how often I get into that way of thinking. And then it showed me how often I do that off of the dance floor as well. And that I got bored practicing worrying. So I just decided to try something different. I decided to not worry and to just actually enjoy and be with my authentic dance while having some awareness of the person near me, and trusted that that was good enough. I didn't get rid of my fear. I didn't push it away. I let it be there. I just discovered that I can still move even when my fear is present. I can still hold on to my authenticity, which may be that fear in the presence of another, and I can let go this need to make it work for them, whatever that means. I could sense that there was the sky and the fear all at the same time. Dance and creativity helped me develop my capacity to accept and just be with whatever comes up, to be with reality as it is. It helped me, because also it was fun and I got exercise and there were social people, so it fed all of these parts that also along with it gave me this spiritual practice to help me practice being with my discomfort and to just watch it come and go. Creativity helped me develop courage. When the Buddha shared the Four Noble Truths, he encouraged people to test out these ideas for himself. Like the shopkeeper, he basically said, we don't supply the fruits here, only the seeds. And no shopkeeper and no faith community and no UU congregation can hand you the fruits. We can't hand you an end to suffering. We can't hand you peace in your family, in your community, in your nation, in your world. Whatever fruit of enlightenment it might be that you're seeking. But we can give you work gloves. We can invite you into a place where we cultivate seeds and relationships and courage together. But you can't just be handed. This isn't a consumer place. This isn't a place as a new member where you just get handed religion or faith or community. This is a place where you are invited to weave yourself in as we open ourselves to you. Our faith community is a people who cultivate relationships and courage and the seeds of our values. And it matters that we do. It matters that there is a we that we are strengthening. We cannot answer the call of life and love alone. One of the spiritual teachers that I turned to help shape my understanding of social change in such a fragmented time like we live in is Margaret Wheatley. And like others, she characterizes our time as a time of disconnection, where we're disconnected from ourselves, from each other, from what's possible. And she writes, still, even with all this disconnection, we still have a yearning to connect with each other. But it's become more and more difficult just to find time to be friends. She says there are other factors that come along too, that we've shifted away from helping one another, just that would naturally arise out of friendship, into this culture of expertise, that we can doubt our ability to show up for someone or to offer something of value because someone knows how to do that and they can pay them to do it. Like there's this middle class culture of expertise that not every class lives with. She also says that this doesn't create friendships, it creates dependency. But I find that it's while that culture of expertise exists, also she writes that friendship isn't easy. That when we care about something deeply, we often don't talk about it. We don't discuss it. Especially if we're having a contention with the person we care about, we may think, our solution is obviously the best one. Of course we're right. Let's not go through the endless conversation and dramas of people arguing, getting upset, accusing each other of not listening, threatening to leave. However frustrating this is, it's absolutely necessary if we're to find a solution that everyone supports. And if we don't have friendship to hold all of this, we're never going to stay together long enough to find that solution. What I hear in her assessment is that we struggle to take a partner. We struggle to find ways to be in our own authentic lives, to be comfortable in our human skins with all the variety of wanted and unwanted things that come our way. And then to be asked to do that, not just in our own skin, but in the presence of another, authentically. I don't think it means that we're just too busy. We're too busy to have time to make friends. I also think we're scared. I also think it can be uncomfortable. It invites us to risk. It invites us to trust one another with our hearts, with the meaning of our lives, and that we can back away too easily from these encounters when we feel uncomfortable. Wheatley writes that in today's turbulent world, things that we have no control over, that no one has control over, can change our lives forever. No one person is in charge of our food system. No one person is in charge of our schools. No one is in charge of healthcare. No one is in charge of homelessness. These highly complex systems have emerged over time through thousands of small local actions, and they cannot be solved even by the boldest of visions of our most heroic leaders. She says we've relied on heroes for too long, perhaps because it's such an enticing promise that somewhere there's someone who will fix everything. Somewhere there's the perfect leader who can lead us out of this whole mess. That somewhere there's someone who's visionary and charismatic and brilliant, and we will just happily follow him or her. Well, she says it's time for all the heroes to go home. It's time for us to give up these hopes and expectations that only serve to make us more dependent. It's time to stop waiting for someone else to save us. It's time to face the truth of our situation. We are all in this together. And to figure out how to engage the hearts and minds of everyone to get on with the work that needs us to do it. It matters if we have spiritual practices that help us live in our own skin, that help us hold on to our authentic lives in the presence of one another, that then we can stay in friendship and relationship long enough to find solutions, to discover them, that we can support and actually live, not just think sounds good, but actually live. It matters that there's a we here that we're strengthening, that this is not just, great, you're a member of the church. What can we do for you? It's a different way of thinking. It's countercultural. How do we strengthen the we together to be with our discomfort, to develop our skills and the building blocks of relationship? That we cultivate this courage, that we cultivate together right mindfulness, right speech, right action. That we develop the courage to keep engaging one another, not because it's always awesome, convenient, or easy, or comfortable, but because it's part of our collective well-being. Engaging one another, living into and accepting the nature of reality. That is, our lives are inextricably connected. In our Unitarian Universalist faith, our engagement with ourselves and one another is the seed and the fruit. May we, our new members, and everyone here, stay together long enough that we can become the friends and the friends of people in our wider community that life and our faith is calling us to become. Amen.